Hello, everyone. Welcome to another monthly webinar with the Katana partner team. Really excited about this one. We've got a special guest today. We've still got a few people rolling in, so we won't get started just yet. We're just at the top of the hour now, so we'll just wait a few minutes. But really excited about what we're going to chat through today and some of the learnings we gathered from a research study that Maria did on our top 100 customers. And some pretty cool stuff that some were unexpected, which is kind of interesting. And then how one of the biggest things is how I think partners can impact the biggest challenges that I think customers are faced with when you're looking at how to have a successful implementation. So really excited to dive into some of these details here shortly. All right. Well, we've got a few people logging in here. See, we've got Joe from Ledger Gurus. Thanks for joining us. Rachel, as always, thanks for logging in, and quite a few other people here. Danny's a new one. So Danny, thanks for joining in today. And I see Susan there. So thanks a lot for joining us, Susan. Well, now that we're a few minutes past and we've given people some time to log in, why don't we dive into some of the content? So, hi, Sean Coltis here, Head of Channel Partnerships at Katana. And today we're going to be talking through Katana's top 100 customers in a detailed research study that Maria did on our top 100 customers. And what did we learn? What did we gather and gain an understanding of from our customers that are utilizing Katana the most? So let's go ahead here and talk through the agenda. So we're going to introduce Maria, so get a little bit of background on where she comes from and her experience. Talk about the goal of the webinar and what we want to have you guys walk away with from the webinar. Get into some details around what those top 100, what the research looked like and what those top 100 customers look like. And then kind of ended off here in understanding sort of what the impact partners have on clients' businesses. And then we'll open up for questions. So turning it over to Maria, who was our research. Maria, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Really happy to join you for this webinar. So I am a customer experience and market researcher here at Katana. I joined Katana, let's see now, about 6 months ago. But I've been doing research at tech companies for around 7 years. And for 5 years, I've focused on the B2B tech companies mainly. And so what I do is basically I help tech companies understand their customers. And that can mean a lot of things. It can mean understanding their preferences, opinions, or behavior. So it's kind of each time with different companies, it can be around different questions. But mainly the question that I come back to is who is our ideal customer, who we should focus and whom we have the best fit with. And I think that the research, or actually, I think we will be touching upon 3 projects, so not 1, but 3 studies that I've done for Katana. This is closely tied to that question. So who we are best, who we have the best fit with.
Awesome. And I think that's definitely something when we think of what our partners, we hope that they walk away with today, is really walking away with an understanding of what types of businesses are having success with Katana. What do those customers look like? What are they using within the software? What are some of the commonalities between those customers? What's the value that they pull from Katana? Why do they implement it? What are some of the things that are most important to them when they make the decision to move forward with Katana? And then at the end, how can consultants address some of the biggest challenges companies are faced with, specifically when adopting new technology? So hopefully by the end of the call, by the end of the webinar, we're walking away with a better understanding of what the types of businesses are having success with Katana, the value they gain from the solution, and then how partners can be a big solution or an important solution to the biggest challenges our customers are faced with when adopting new technology. All right, so a little bit about the research. So Maria, maybe you can take us through just some high-level information around what the study was, who we focused on, and sort of just some summary information on the research itself.
Yeah. So the starting point for this project was that Katana has redefined itself as an inventory management software. So we're moving away from that narrow focus on manufacturing, and we're expanding our target in a way to provide inventory management solution to companies. So we knew that we had to understand better who our customer is in that changed context. So kind of the logical thing was to look at those that had said that, hey, we are not manufacturers. So we had self-reported data from our customers, and it was 185 companies who said that we do not manufacture. So that was our starting point. And actually, the one of the biggest learnings for me personally came already from that stage is we learned that there are no such thing as two well-defined groups, manufacturers and non-manufacturers. What we saw instead is that there are companies who have hybrid setups, and these can also change in time. So a company can outsource some of their production, they can start in-house, and then as they get more orders, outsource to meet that growing demand, or vice versa, they can start outsourcing and then move to in-house production by acquiring facilities and equipment to start doing that in-house for various reasons. So we saw that it's not two groups, it's a scale. On one end, there are those that do mostly their production in-house. And on the other hand, there are also companies that outsource the most of it, if not all. And our customers can fall anywhere in between. So that study led us to the realization that we have to stop, in a way, thinking about manufacturing and non-manufacturing customers. So instead, we decided to look at our most successful customers. So these are the 100 companies that bring us the most MRR. And we did a study with our data analytics team to deeply delve into what they do at Katana. And also, I basically looked at all of these companies' homepages and other materials like sales calls, customer success materials, etc., to understand what their challenges are and what they come to solve with us.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense with regards to the hybrid model that you alluded to. I think with the advent of technology, businesses can go to market much more effectively by adopting technology, whereas traditionally businesses were maybe B2B or B2C. Now, as a brand, they can start to branch out and fulfill demand through channels or multiple channels. And that's where the adoption of technology comes into play and enables them to not only go to market, but also fulfill those orders more effectively. So it kind of makes sense that there's this growing amount of companies that operate in this hybrid model. And one of the things you had mentioned is MRR. So just for the partners, MRR is the monthly recurring revenue that they're paying towards Katana. So when we think of our top 100 customers, we're thinking of our top 100 customers from a revenue perspective as far as how much they're paying for Katana on a monthly basis. Yeah, cool, awesome. Any other points here, Maria, that you wanted to dive into, or what we were looking for from the customers that we did study?
Yeah, I think that actually we can move to the next slide where the exciting stuff begins with the findings.
Sounds great. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
So Katana's top 100 customers, consumer brands with e-commerce stores. Interesting. Tell us a little bit more, Maria.
So these were definitely two of the strongest trends that we uncovered, is that our top customers tend to have an e-commerce store, and they tend to be brand based. So it's a company that has a really strong tie to a brand. It's their own product or a line of products mostly. So we don't have that many retail sellers in that sense, like retail stores among our top customers who would have a really wide variety of product types, for example. So they tend to be more a product line based or a one product based company. And if we, when we looked at what happens with their production, we see that even if they outsource their products, they still have some ties to that contract manufacturer. So what we saw is that they try to track, for example, inventory or even production of their products with that contract manufacturer. And that is an important insight for Katana, that is a valid pain point for our top customers.
So the tracking of inventory for brands that are selling through e-commerce is a challenge, and they're looking for solutions in the market, whether that's inventory that they have in-house and that they produce in-house, or inventory that they're out, or manufacturing that they're outsourcing, so they're sending goods to another company. They need to track the inventory that's at that separate location. Is that sort of what you were uncovering?
Exactly. And it can be either one or the other. So they can either outsource the product and then the contract manufacturer takes care of the inventory. So they need to know when the production starts and have a way to track that.
Mm-hmm.
Or they are directly responsible for the inventory and purchase that and then send it to the contract manufacturer. And that can be especially the case with some specialty products where the brand has high involvement in the composition of the product. So it's not a generic thing that they're producing. It has some
Right.
special component or something that is unique to them.
So it's kind of as a part of the brand. So the product itself is
Yeah,
a representation of the brand of the company, and they're selling it online, and they're having trouble managing the components or inventory that they need to maintain in-house to fulfill those orders, and that's why they're coming to a solution like Katana to help solve that problem. And
exactly.
one of the things that seemed to jump out here is the e-commerce solution that they tended to utilize. What did you find from that perspective?
Yeah, so in that one sense, it's quite logical, but also somewhat surprising. So we knew that even when we had the more narrow focus of manufacturing, we knew that the direct to consumer was a huge thing for our customers. But now looking at the data with, let's say, a fresh set of a fresh perspective, we understood that let me think. Sorry, I just lost my thought here.
No problem. You were kind of getting into. We were talking about e-commerce stores, and what
Yeah,
was
exactly.
really the most
Yeah, the
common
e-commerce store.
solution that they were using?
Yeah, so the e-commerce store. So we knew that direct to manufacturing is a thing for our manufacturing customers. But even now, looking at the more wide perspective, we saw that a majority of our top customers sell through e-commerce store, that
Mm.
they predominantly manage through Shopify. So
Ah.
that was a trend that we uncovered. But kind of one reservement that I had is that, okay, so a company has an e-commerce store, but what if the majority of their sales still come from selling wholesale to retail? sellers.
Hmm.
So what we did is we checked where they get the most of the turnover. And we saw that actually for 60% of the companies that have e-com store, Shopify was the top source of turnover. So we validated that direct sales through an e-commerce store is a really important and I would say vital part of their businesses.
Ah, okay. So that makes perfect sense. So these brands, these companies that produce a unique product relative to their specific brand are selling online for the majority of their revenue, and typically are going to utilize Shopify to fulfill those orders and as a shopping cart on their e-commerce store.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a really important learning when we think of the ideal customer profile for Katana. It seems like a company that is a brand that has a product that they're selling online. And if it's through Shopify, we know we have a lot of success with that technology integration and can solve a significant problem that these brands are running into with regards to managing their inventory.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's move on here to kind of dive into the industries. It's a common question we get. What industry do you have success in? And we kind of have some kind of answers that we typically go off of based on some customers that we know we've been successful with, like individually. But overall, I'm really interested to hear, was there a specific industry that stood out that we tend to have success with, or what did your takeaway from this? What did you learn from this?
Yeah. So the chart that you see here is it looks like we're all over the place, right? So we have a high variability of industries, and many of them are so specific that they are under the label other. So that is
Mm.
not very helpful, right? But but from that study, we saw that that really apparel and textiles is where we have a lot of success, and also what stood out for me, specialty beverages.
Mm.
So it's energy drinks, it's kombucha products, it's health drinks. So we had quite many brands that specialize in a drink, in a beverage, or a line of beverages. So that was an interesting thing to find. And also another category was car accessories is how I called them, but
Hmm.
I don't know that much about cars. So it's all sorts of stuff you can put on your car to make it better, basically.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think of, so the first, you had mentioned specialty beverages,
Hmm.
and I can see one of the commonalities we find with companies that essentially are putting like a liquid into a bottle,
Hmm.
is there's a few things that Katana can do quite well. So one is the unit of measure conversion. So they might buy it in one unit of measure, receive it into a different unit of measure. And so Katana can help them track the inventory of their liquids as well as their components or containers that they're putting the liquid into. And then on top of that, we have the batch tracking capabilities. So you have this food product or food and beverage product that requires batch tracking, and that's where Katana's functionality from that perspective can help them fulfill a requirement in that industry or in that space. So that makes perfect sense. I have no idea why the car accessory industry would utilize Katana, though I'm assuming they're selling for the most part online and people are ordering in these parts to their house. Is that kind of what you're starting mainly seeing, that these companies are selling online, these car accessory companies?
Yeah, I think so. And also, I think it might come down to us having a BOM, so bill of materials,
Ah, interesting.
that might be important for these product types.
That makes sense, and I think we talk about this a little bit further on, but the bill of material aspect for the top 100 customers is an extremely important aspect of the solution, and that's where the vast majority of them are using not a super complex bill of material, but certainly something that a lot of people would consider an advanced inventory requirement with regards to that bill of material.
Exactly. And
Awesome.
Yeah, I think if we go to the next slide, there's also kind of more about these beverages and liquids. So kind of the interesting find for me that among our top 100 customers, we actually have key players of an ecosystem. So I mentioned before that, companies can be very different in their production setup. Some outsource most of their production and some do everything in-house. And actually among our top 100, we do have these companies who service these consumer brand companies that I
Oh,
mentioned
interesting.
before. Yeah, and these companies tend to specialize in what I can call liquids. So there are cannabis-based products there that are tinctures and more fluid type of products, then beverages as well as cosmetics production. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So not only do we have sort of a good concentration of brands in our top 100 customers, but we also have the companies that actually service these brands as the outsourced manufacturer.
Yes.
And so these companies that are servicing the brands, whether it be, like you said, a cosmetic or a beverage product that they're, packaging for them or bottling for them, are they selling to those brands through an e-commerce store? So is that brand, their client or customer going online and saying, I need 500 of these things, and they're putting in that order through like a Shopify channel, or is that more of a B2B type sales model where they're like
Yeah.
emailing them a purchase order?
So this is the small subset of our top 100 that do not have an e-commerce store.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, we saw that it was 72% have an e-commerce store. So there is a portion of companies that do not, and the companies that service the consumer brands, so the ones offering white label manufacturing and brand development, etc., they offer purely B2B type of services. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. So it's the one commonality, I guess, is all of these companies are related to some kind of brand that's making a product, whether they're the outsourced manufacturer or they're the brand themselves that's selling online. They gain value from Katana in helping to manage their inventory.
Yeah.
That's really, really interesting. And Rachel had a couple comments. So aftermarket parts. So there's a lot of them, and that's speaking to the car industry. There's so many different companies out there that can make and produce aftermarket parts that you can put on your car. And I know when I've gone out to, purchase like a roof rack for my vehicle, it was kind of daunting to figure out which roof rack to buy, and there were so many different options. And I ended up buying the roof rack from Amazon, which was quite wild. And I ordered it to my house, and it fit perfectly. So I guess buying things online rather than going to a place to have it done can save you quite a bit of money, especially if it's a relatively simple thing that you can put on your car yourself. And then Rachel had another comment. Most of these companies are using co-packers, and so I guess a co-packer would be, a business or that is packaging the items for the brand themselves.
So not only packaging, also production. So they're offering some part or fully producing the product. Yeah.
Fully producing the product. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Very interesting. Okay. And then she had a couple other comments here. It's a big thing to sell online, filling the bottles and packaging. So I guess that for these beverage companies, co-packers are a requirement. So they might be the brand. You can think of like with the big company that comes to mind is Prime, this beverage that I guess those brothers came out with, and Logan Paul is the one guy I can think of. But anyways, so we have this drink Prime. They actually wouldn't manufacture it; they're just the brand, and they're selling them, and they're getting someone else to bottle it and make the actual product themselves. It makes perfect sense. Awesome. All right. And so some of the big takeaways, and I love these sort of stat slides around our top 100 customers. So maybe you can take us through these, Marias, as far as the kind of interesting 6 stats that we were able to pull from our top 100 customers.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the key takeaway for us is that our top 100 is clearly tied to a brand. So 83% of them have their own product or a line of products, and that's their main business. Also, majority of them operate an e-commerce store. And a big portion of those that operate an e-commerce store get most of their turnover from Shopify. So that is an important integration for us and important part of our e-commerce brands businesses. What we also saw is that our top customers are the ones that have the most conversations with us through support and success. So they generate 2 times the conversation inquiries than all of the other Katana customers. So they are truly interested in making Katana work for their business and solving any issues that they have. They also log in more than other customers, which is purely utilizing Katana to its maximum. And it just shows that we're an important part of their business. And as you mentioned already, Sean, is that our top customers have more complex BOM setups. So over 90% of them have BOMs with more than one level. So they're not overly complex, but still more than one level.
Absolutely, and I think this really paints a nice picture when you think of sort of the tech stack that they might look to utilize. So you can see that they're selling often as a brand through Shopify. They need to utilize something like Katana to help them manage their inventory, especially because they have this multi-level bill of material requirement, which would kind of prevent them from using something like QuickBooks Online as their accounting and inventory solution. So Katana provides that integration to Shopify as well as that integration into QuickBooks Online. So you get this sort of seamless tech stack that enables them to have success. And then these top 100 customers that are spending a bit more with our solution are certainly utilizing the customer support that we provide. And if you think of the partners' engagement with those customers, if they're utilizing and have a slightly more complex inventory requirement, they're selling online, they maybe have this hybrid business model, they're going to rely on the consultants and the software solutions they have more because their business is slightly more complex and they need to utilize those technological solutions they have in place to ensure that they can meet the market demands. So if you think of the value proposition that a consultant can bring to a customer that is a brand that is selling online, that has inventory, and they're selling through Shopify or maybe multiple sales channels, there's a lot of value a consultant can bring to these businesses as that source of information and expertise that they can leverage and lean on.
And maybe one addition is that our top customers do take more time to reach the state which we call fully active. So what the thing that we measure is when a company utilizes Katana to the maximum, basically. And what was an interesting find is that our top customers actually take more time to reach that state. And the takeaway can be is that they do it thoroughly. So they really understand how Katana integrates into their processes, or how to integrate Katana
that's such an important takeaway. So they're not just like flipping the switch and utilizing the system fully. Yep. They have an implementation plan. They take a while to understand exactly how the solution will be incorporated into their workflow and potentially even make some changes to their overall processes to optimize how they're utilizing Katana. And because they're doing these things, it might take a little bit longer for them to get up and running on the solution. But once they do, it really is fully integrated into their business and how they operate.
Exactly. And what we saw that indeed our most successful customers are using Katana to its fullest. So only 7% of them, I think, were just logging in, while for our other customer base, that number was significantly higher. So they're really, using Katana.
Very interesting. Well, that's awesome, awesome insight as far as really when you think of the value again as a partner to help a company getting up and running on a system. If that system is going to be truly impactful to their business, it's imperative that they understand their processes and can get it up and running effectively and incorporated directly into their overall business workflow. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but that's an awesome takeaway. So sort of this slide kind of highlights some of the things that were on the last slide. But what are some of the other key learning points that you can take away from when you look at our top 100 customers and how they utilize Katana and what they gain from it?
Yeah, so maybe one more point that we didn't mention was about the operations, which ties back to outsourcing some or all of the production, and the learning that we had, that it's not like we have two distinct groups of manufacturers who produce and therefore use manufacturing operations, and then a group that outsources, so they wouldn't logically have any operations to track, right? What we saw instead is that pretty much all of our successful customers use operations. So they do something in-house and they want to track those outsourced operations for themselves as well. So, from some of the interviews that I had, I learned that actually this consolidation of deadlines and when the production starts, when stuff will be delivered, etc., can be a real pain point for these brands.
Oh, that makes perfect sense, and I can definitely see that in conversations I have with partners and their clients. The ones that require a better understanding of the operations on the shop floor, whether it's scheduling or communicating to the shop floor what jobs they should be working on and prioritizing those jobs. Often the shop floor control application is a really important aspect to those businesses and how they can communicate with the shop floor and track how much time it's taking to do things and understand how long it might take for a job to be completed. So I can see that adding a lot of value to those businesses, and something again that is really beyond something like QuickBooks Online or even some of the other inventory management solutions out there, because we are offering this manufacturing, or even though some of these businesses wouldn't see themselves as manufacturers, I think that was a really interesting takeaway as well, that some of these businesses, though they produce things in-house,
yeah,
and they utilize operations and they have a multi-level bill of material, they don't identify actually as a manufacturer. They identify as an e-commerce brand.
yes.
And I think that's a really interesting thing when we might at Katana have thought of them as a manufacturer. They themselves do not think of themselves as that. And so how do we communicate with them when we're working with them and making sure we're speaking the same language, essentially?
Exactly. So I literally saw two companies that were pretty much identical in the sense that their product type was very similar and their production setup was very similar. And one identified with strongly with being a manufacturer, and the other one did not at all. So it's
Interesting.
it's very different. It can differ a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, and we talked about this a little bit just on the previous slide, but the value that Katana ended up bringing these businesses. Why do they buy Katana? Why do they utilize it? Why is it impactful to their business? What did you learn about that, Maria?
Yeah, so I think that the main thing that Katana does, and the value that we deliver fairly quickly to our customers, is having real-time visibility into stock. So knowing what you have, how much of, and when. So that is, of course, vital for any business. And the fact that we do have these key integrations that tie it all nicely together makes sure that the information flows from accounting to inventory to e-commerce. So it all comes together in a way. The picture all comes together. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Real-time inventory is something it's sometimes difficult to communicate how important it is. But if you think about these businesses that are brands, they're selling online, and in real time, they need to know what they need to buy. So if that item has a multi-level bill of material, so you have the sale that comes in of a finished product, it comes into Katana in real time, and then Katana has the ability to not only see the demand that they need to make for that finished product, but right away the demand for that raw material that they might need to go and buy. So you can really cut down on the time it might take to go and create that purchase order. So you're ensuring your supply chain is being maintained, it's responding in real time to demand that's being created. So something that Katana can certainly help with. So that's a great finding and something that we talk about a lot. So that's really neat that our top 100 customers see a lot of value in it.
And I think that ties very nicely to the next point about the hybridization of businesses. So what we really see is that businesses don't have one sales channel anymore. So they might sell on Shopify, in an e-commerce store, in Amazon, B2B to wholesalers. So it's a multitude of moving particles, so to say. So to manage all of that inventory offline becomes impossible. So real-time visibility into inventory becomes imperative for their success to meet that customer demand. Yeah.
That's such a great point, and I think John Bottom from Ledger Guru. There's a couple of people that work with John on the call today. He had said just in a call we had maybe last week or the week before that it's really easy for a business to become super complicated today because they can go and start to sell through. Yeah, like why wouldn't I put my product on Etsy? Why wouldn't I put my product on Walmart, whatever, on Amazon, on Shopify? And the reason they wouldn't do it previously is because they would lose control of their business really quickly. But when you start to see those avenues of revenue as a business owner, you want to take advantage of them. So in order to take advantage of them, you not only need the technology, but you do need that expertise, and you do need that consultant that can help direct you. And Rachel was just talking about some new point of sale solutions that she was exploring because a couple of her customers were thinking about using them. And now she's learning about them, and she has the experience and expertise to kind of compare them to the other point of sale solutions in the market. So ensuring that your tech stack is optimized for this hybrid go-to-market model is imperative. And then with Katana, it helps you ensure that you can connect to all those different sales channels and then manage your inventory effectively. So really cool how all that's kind of coming together with these complex businesses that are going to market in many different ways. All right. And then I guess the last piece, ease of use and implementations are universal considerations. There was a really kind of interesting point there in how businesses are prioritizing ease of use and the time at which they can get a solution up and running. Any thoughts on that, Maria?
So we know that Katana wins on the ease of use, right? And why it? I think it has to do with the process of coming to the point when a business actually starts to look for a solution. So from one of my previous studies, so the point when a business starts to do something is not when they realize that they have a problem. It's when that problem cannot be ignored anymore. So it's literally biting their ass. Sorry for the lack of better words. So that is why ease of implementation becomes imperative to get things up and running quite quickly, because they are losing money.
Absolutely. And if they spend too much time doing it, it'll just fail as a project, right? They'll move on, they'll find some other workaround. So it's important, if they make an investment into a solution, that they get it up and adopt it rather quickly. And I think user adoption is one of the hardest things. When I did implementation for years, it wasn't the buy-in from the owner that was typically the hard part. It was like the sales rep or the manufacturing shop foreman who was just like, oh, I'm not changing, right? And so that's where you need something that's easy to use, that they can see value in right away, and that you're not making their life more complicated or challenging. And that's what Katana brings to the table. And here's some of the kind of on that point of implementation, the challenges. What are the customers faced with when they choose, okay, that problem is now biting them in the ass, and they make the decision, let's go all in with a solution to help them manage their inventory? What are some of the key things that customers need to consider or have in place to ensure a successful implementation?
Yeah, so it can sound even fairly obvious, and I think it's transferable to any software, B2B software implementation. But there is a set of capacities, is how I call it, that every implementation project needs to have a sufficient level of. So basically what happens is you have a one person or a group of people that decide that, okay, we need to bring on a system that helps our business improve, right? And what they need to have is they need to know the industry and the company, obviously. They also need to know a thing or two about process optimization and knowledge about how these implementation projects work. And this is where a lot of customers that do this for the first time, or who don't have that many experience, can really fail. And that is actually where the consultants can come in, right? They also need to have a sufficient level of technological proficiency. So they need to know how integrations work, what is an API, how a software ties to other things in their business, etc., what type of integrations they need, and stuff like that. Pretty obvious. You need to have time to do this. So it's a list of things you need to consider, and it just takes a while. And last but not least is decision-making authority. And what my takeaway is that in the group that is the project team, let's call it that way, that is implementing a software solution, there needs to be a sufficient level of all of these capacities. And if there is a lack of one or many, you would need to outsource it from somewhere, or most likely you will be unsuccessful. That was my finding from research that I did for Katana in previous months. So what I actually saw, that indeed consultants fill in a lot of these gaps for the buyers. And probably, consultants know this just from experience. But I think it's also helpful to bring this to the consciousness, so to say, is that when you have this project of helping a customer to implement, to really understand what they are lacking and what they are outsourcing from the consultant. So you, yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, no business has an excess time, technical proficiency, and then operational skill set where they're optimizing their workflows and their processes. Those are just things that businesses typically don't have. Maybe they do once in a while, but for the most part, they need to outsource that to a professional. And that's where the consultants come in and can add just a ton of value to businesses to ensure that they get up and running successfully within their software. And that's imperative to the success of the long-term business. So consultants are just so important from that perspective. And so just to kind of wrap things up here, we're at time for the call, Maria, and really appreciate diving into this. This is sort of a summary of, overall what customers look like from an ideal customer profile with Katana. They have probably under 100,000 SKUs. They're between 1 million and 50 million in annual revenue. They have a make to order or make to stock workflow, so that's speaking to that hybrid order volume. And they're not a drop shipper, so they typically are a brand that is delivering something directly to that customer. And then we go through some of the key challenges that businesses are faced with. But overall, Maria, I really wanted to thank you for your time today. We've chatted through a lot of this already, so I don't think we need to get into a lot of it, but if anyone has any questions or follow-ups, please feel free to reach out to myself or your partner manager, as well as we are offering free sales training on Katana right now. So if you wanted to reach out to your partner manager, we have a 3-stage sales process that we can go through with you on how to sell Katana and ensure that you're communicating effectively about the product. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time today. Maria, any last words that you can, last words of wisdom you can leave with our partners before we sign off?
Yeah, maybe on that last note is just what I've seen is it's so important to understand your customer, obviously. So just really thinking about how to complement and fill in the gaps of your customer is what will make or break the project, basically, of implementation.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Maria, for your time and your detailed research on Katana's top 100 customers and all the learnings we took away today. Thank you, everyone in the partnership community that joined us. We really appreciate your partnership and look forward to chatting soon. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day.